Alright, thanks for tuning in, and this is my spoiler review of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, starring Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, and Gal Gadot. Alright, guys, before I actually get into my spoiler, like, full on spoilers, I have a little thing to acknowledge. So, I just came back from seeing BVS for the third time, and I still love it. But after I go see a movie, I love to watch what reviewers say and what their thoughts are, and sometimes it gives me a different view of the movie by listening to what somebody else has to say. And I listen to everyone, like big time reviewers on YouTube, small time. So I can't really remember who actually said this, but they did say a few things that I had a problem with, and I understand all films subjective, so they're not wrong, and it's what they think, and I understand that, and but to me there were things that just seemed like they were holding blinders on. Maybe I don't know the person, so they they could like hate it and all. Three things were they had a big issue with the Doomsday battle with Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman, saying that Zack Snyder learned nothing from Man of Steel and the destruction that he caused that Metropolis, that this was worse. And then they also mentioned how the the Batman and Superman fight ending was anticlimactic, and also that the movie was kind of all over the place, and I actually agree with that. Batman and Superman, the story and the editing was all over the place, and that was a huge flaw. And I understand that this movie has many flaws in the film, and that's why I never gave it a perfect grade because there is flaws. But let me first acknowledge the Doomsday element. To say that Zack Snyder didn't learn from the backlash that he got from Man of Steel about the destruction of Metropolis, he did learn. And if this is my big problem, if you don't pay attention, you may miss things that make, like, oh, he didn't learn anything. He did learn, because if you remember, when Wonder Woman first appears and she's looking at Batman and asks him, why did you bring him back to the city? Because she was concerned that innocent people would die. Batman simply says, the port is abandoned and there is a weapon here that can kill it. Which means that the only people who are in danger are Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman. We're the only people who are in danger. Now, if you're having a problem with destruction, this is a comic book film. It, like, there's gonna be destruction, and that brings, like, well, where were all these problems and complaints when Avengers came out, or when Age of Ultron came out? Because I can simply remember that there was a whole bunch of destruction in Avengers, not only from the alien invasion, but I'm pretty sure when Hulk was jumping off buildings and climbing on the sides of them, he was probably killing people who were in those offices and buildings. So to say that there's not gonna, that you had a problem with destruction, then you probably shouldn't be watching comic book films because there's going to be destruction regardless. My big problem with Man of Steel was, yes, he did kill a lot of people, but he was only Superman for 24 hours. So he was just learning how to be Superman, so obviously he was going to kill people. So that was my big problem, and I was like, nobody's in danger. Everyone's either on the other side of Gotham or in Metropolis, and they're not being injured. The only people in danger were Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, who were trying to stop this thing. So that was my like. It just didn't make sense to me, and I understand maybe he's looking at it a different way. Maybe he didn't hear that part. And then another part was how the Batman and Superman fight ended. Let me set this up for you guys. So he also had a problem with how Batman and Superman end up fighting, and it's a twist in what we actually thought when we see the trailers. Lex Luthor has Martha Kent, Clark's mom. He kidnaps her and says, "You have about less than an hour to bring me the Bat's head, or I'm going to kill your mother." Okay, So Superman really has no bad feelings for Batman. I mean, obviously he doesn't like how Batman is handling things in Gotham, but right now he was more focused on his mother, and he was, when he first lands to see Batman, he tries to convince Batman that, Bruce, I need your help. And Bruce is not listening due to he is still very upset, and he has laid traps for Superman. And by the second trap, Superman is angry and pissed off, and he just ends up fighting him. So they end up fighting, and it's probably one of the greatest fight scenes I've seen in a while in a comic book movie. So Batman is able to use the kryptonite grenades that he created from the kryptonite rock twice. Because once he uses it and he is able to get advantage, and then it wears off, and then he has to use it again. And he sets up this trap to kill Superman with a spear that has kryptonite shaped like a knife, almost like. And he's about ready to kill Superman. And as he cuts Clark's cheek and shows blood. So, to anyone who was wondering, does Superman actually bleed? Yes, he does bleed. Clark looks at Bruce and says, he has Martha. And even as a hardcore DC fanboy as I am, I did not put two and two together that Martha Kent has the same name as Batman's mom, Martha Wayne, which was really interesting, and it kind of threw me for the loop. Because now Batman is saying, what did you just say? And anyone who knows Batman knows you kind of don't bring up his parents because he has a screw loose when it comes to his parents. And he wants to know why Clark is saying Martha. He screams at him, why are you saying that name? How do you know her? And, oddly enough, Lois happened to know where they were and says that is his mother. So this is the big thing. It may not be anticlimactic, but think about this, guys. Batman for 20 years was being the Batman in a way where he was not killing people. And at this point, he is killing people. He is, not caring, not really giving a fuck about these people because he's like, he said it in one other scene to Alfred that said, criminals are like weeds. Even if you kill one, one will take its place. So when he finds out that not only does Clark have a mom who he probably never thought of, that someone on this planet actually loves him, he finds out that if he was to kill Clark right then and there, he would have been no better than the guy who killed Bruce's parents when he was a child. And it also brings up to the fact that maybe Bruce needs to change how he is acting right now when it involves how he's dealing with criminals. That killing is not the best way to handle it. And yes, he goes off and kills people again, but it's like anything in real life, it's a slow process. I mean, if you're an alcoholic and you decide you want to stop, you're going to have a few slip-ups. So that was my thing, that it was a great way to make Batman realize, I can't kill this. I can't kill this man. Because if I kill him, I'm not only taking someone away from an innocent woman, I'm also killing an innocent woman because of my own personal anger over this man. So that was maybe a lot of people think of it that way, that like, they're automatically friends. And to me, they weren't friends. He was just offering to help save his mom. And then Doomsday appears, and then obviously they have to fight Doomsday to save the planet. And then by then, obviously spoilers, Superman dies to kill Doomsday. So by then, there is no friendship. Now, in the death of Superman, you see Batman grab Superman and place his hands over the open wound of where Doomsday had stabbed him, and slowly carry him down to bring him to Wonder Woman, as they bring him down to lay him where Lois can see the dead body, because obviously their relationship got a lot better in this film. So I took that. I just didn't like the fact that She happened to random be places where he was, and same thing with Superman. He automatically knew where she was, and but and that was because a lot of people had said who knew like a year ago that Superman was going to die because Doomsday was in this film. I did not know that, and I'm actually really happy that I didn't know it because I went in. Whoa! They had the balls to kill Superman. Now, obviously, at the end, as Lois is pouring the dirt over Superman's coffin, the dirt rises at the very last second of the film. And if a lot of people were disappointed with that, and I'm like, did you honestly expect him to be dead? They're creating Justice League. You can't make a Justice League movie without Superman. Next to Batman, he is the leader of the Justice League. So that didn't. I was like, oh, there it is. Oh, now what's interesting is what kind of Superman are we gonna get? Is he gonna be different? Is he gonna be a different Superman because he's obviously coming back from the death? And you never know. Now, to other spoilers that I want to acknowledge that I like more of negatives that I had a problem with. The one of the biggest problems I had in any of like the storytelling or just any story. Bruce goes to Lex's party to get files from him to figure out where the kryptonite is because he knows Lex is getting it. But while doing that, he finds a file named Metahumans. So obviously anybody who's a DC comic book fan is metahumans are humans with powers, basically. And then you see the logos: Flash, Cyborg, Aquaman. He only clicks the Wonder Woman one because he wants to figure out what this woman's about, and figures out that she's basically immortal because he sees a photo of 1918 with soldiers and it would have been way better if they had Batman look at all of them, because then he sends an email to Wonder Woman and asking her what is she, where have you been, and all this, and then sends her in the attachment up to the other files, and that is when we be able to see the footage of Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg. Now, the Flash one was very good because it was a surveillance footage of him in a Quickie Mart or some kind of gas station mart or something like that, and it's being robbed, and you just see Flash, who's like getting some milk, quickly take this guy out, and that was great. I was like, okay, you got me for Flash. This is it. And then they do the Aquaman one, which was kind of weird because it's taken place underwater. And my brain was going, okay, how are you doing surveillance underwater? And like it was like HD quality, like you can like literally see him, and his eyes light up, and he kind of smiles, and I'm like, well, if Aquaman saw a camera, he really wouldn't be smiling because he's not a fan of humans. He doesn't like us. He wants to be left alone, and you just see him destroy part of apparently destroy the camera, only to go to another camera where he does this, like, the boom, and he swims away. And then they do the Cyborg one, which was probably the weakest of all of them because it's really just Cyborg's dad trying to basically bring his son back to life with all this, with this cube and all. It was like something out of Terminator 2, and I didn't really like it all that much. So that was one of my big issues, apart from the poor editing and the storytelling was all over the place. Another big problem I had is, I already brought this up, Lois has to be saved 3 different times in this film. And just happened, and Superman just happens to know where she is. So I don't know if he's got like a transmitter on her or something, or he's just watching her all the time. Something out of 50 Shades of Grey or something, where he's like, first she's in Africa and she's got caught because the CIA is trying to watch these guys, and she's out at gunpoint, and then all of a sudden Superman shows up and he takes the guy out, and I'm like, okay, I'll believe that one because that was the first one. But then, when after she goes to Washington, she comes back and Lex Luthor captures her, and this whole setup to Lex Luthor decides he's on the helipad of his building, right? And he decides the best way for me to get Superman is to take his heart, and he just pushes her off the building. Yep. Probably knowing that Superman was gonna come, or maybe he just didn't care. I'm guessing the latter. He probably didn't care if she died. Oh, there's Superman. And I'm like, weren't you just in like Antarctica or something? Talking to your ghost dad, which was another problem I had. Like, why are you talking to your dad? I was like, whatever. I guess you're going insane like Batman a little bit. And I was like, okay. But then the third time it happened, because Lois originally takes the spear that Batman was going to use to kill Superman, throws it in the water. Why she did that when it was perfectly safe where it was, I don't know. But then she comes out seeing Doomsday. And she apparently automatically knows that he is a Kryptonian of some sort. And she goes, oh, maybe I should go get that spear and maybe help them. So she goes back, right? Okay. She goes in the water trying to get the spear. During the battle, they hit part of the building and it collapses and falls into the water, trapping Lois. So in the middle of this fight, where Superman is battling Doomsday, he gets knocked in the air by Doomsday, and he's ready to go after him one more time, and then he hears that Lois needs help, and I'm like, man, dude, must have the greatest hearing in the world, because you're in the middle of this fight and you just hear her knocks on the wall that's trapping her, and he saves her. And I'm like, oh man, if Lois becomes just the typical damsel in distress, I'm gonna have a real problem, because. And the real reason I had a big problem is the next thing I'm going to bring up, which is it was great and I loved it, but here's my problem. Bruce has a vision after he gets back the files, and he's waiting to decrypt it. So he kind of falls asleep. And at first you see the nightmare sequence that is by far the most amazing scene, and I could watch that. They need to just make a movie about that whole setting of where Superman is evil, and they show the Omega symbol, where you obviously has all that dark side he's coming, with the Mad Max like trench coat and the goggles, and he just looked badass. That was the Batman. So he's having this vision of himself obviously wanting to take out Superman, and he gets these other guys to get him the kryptonite bomb that they obviously created. Little does he know that it was a setup for them to trap him. And now he's fighting all of these Superman-like soldiers. I mean, they're humans, but they serve Superman. And it's probably one of the best battles that I've seen. It was something out of the Arkham Knight. I mean, once he starts fighting, he pulls out a gun, which was really pretty cool because that was just awesome. He starts shooting people, and he actually leaves the truck where the bomb is and starts fighting all these guys, and the camera is just swarming above. It's like there's a plane above him watching, and he's taking out like 20, 30 guys all by himself, shooting them, breaking their arms, knocking them out, and it gets to the point where you're seeing all the parademons flying around, trying to take him out as well. And there's 3 or 4 guys now ganged up on Batman, and they're hitting him, but he's still he takes one guy literally by his head, and while he's on his knees, he takes him down, slams him on his knee, and then he throws another guy and breaks his neck, and it was the most epic scene. And then they finally take him down, and there's a parademon who knocks Batman out. Okay, and then he wakes up with, he's chained up. We saw the clip where, Superman is coming down with the soldiers bowing down to him. and then he's walking towards you, and he has two other guys chained next to him, and you see Superman use his laser eyes to, take them out. Psh, they're dead. So you're like, oh, yeah. So they're now face to face right now, right? Superman takes the cowl off of Bruce, which we see in the clip. And then he looks at him and says, "She was my world, and you took her from me." So obviously, anyways, like, oh, he's talking about Lois. Batman did something to Lois, and we don't know what he did. I mean, for all we know, he fell in love with Lois, and, maybe, I doubt that. He probably accidentally killed her or something. And then you see Superman touch Batman's chest. And then all you hear is Batman scream, so obviously he, like, punches right through him. And then you think Bruce had just woken up because he's back in the Batcave by his Batcomputer. But then you see a big flash, like burst of light, and you see this guy telling Bruce, you were right about him. You need to get the rock. Lois is the key. And this was the Flash using his powers to be able to tell Bruce what was going on. And this is where I had the big problem. Okay, so if we're doing this, which is clear in Justice Gods Among Us, where, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the basic premise is Lois dies in Justice Gods Among Us. In the game, Joker kills her, and this ends up screwing Superman up so badly, he wants full control of the planet, and he uses Justice League to help him to maintain control. Okay? That is a great storyline, and I seriously hope this is like phase 2, not like the very first Justice League Lois dies and we're going to do this whole storyline, because you can't do that. You got to set up. You got to set these characters up before we go in, because then we won't care. Because I guarantee you, people had a hard enough time caring about even Superman in this movie that they didn't care that, he died and all that. I was like, whatever. I definitely cared. But if Lois is going to become this constant damsel in distress, I'm going to have a big problem with it. Because, she dies. Well, obviously, because she gets captured every freaking movie. Every 3 times in the movie. I mean, of course she's going to die one of these times. Sometimes Superman's not going to be able to save her. So I seriously hope in Justice League that they find a better way to use her. Or, maybe don't use her at all. Just save her for Superman-only films. And I'm not saying this is bad for Amy Adams, because she's a great actress, and I loved her as Lois. But it was just like, oh my god, how many times can this woman get captured? Like, I hate to bring it up, but in the Dark Knight trilogy, Rachel was only captured once. And she died in that one time. Yes, she was in various situations, but she was always able to pull herself out, and I believe only Batman saved her twice. Once in Batman Begins from Scarecrow when she's about to shoot him, and second when Joker throws her out of building. And then the next time Joker captures her, he isn't able to save her. And that's why Rachel Dawes was a good character, because she wasn't a constant damsel in distress, and she was a DA. She was a strong female lead, or not lead, but co-star, and it was really, I didn't get that same thing with Lois, and I know in the comics she's a constant damsel in distress, but you kind of have to separate that. You know what I'm saying? Also, one more big thing for me was that I really enjoyed was Gal Gadot. I'm going to say just this one thing about Gal Gadot and her. She did this one great scene with Bruce where they're in a ball, and she had already stolen the thing to have the files from Lex's company, and Bruce wants it back, and how he finds her is beyond me. And in the scene, Bruce grabs her by the arm and says, in that dress, maybe 1 out of 10 men would allow you to get away with what you've done. but I'm not one of them. You don't know me. And I know a few women like you, obviously making references to maybe Zatanna, Catwoman, Harley Quinn, a bunch of these other women that he obviously knows. And she always, you remember the clip? She says, "You don't know a woman like me." And then she does this very clever thing. She's kind of touching Bruce on the chest and fixing his tux for him. And she says probably one of the best lines that Wonder Woman has. And it's, you know what? It's true what they say about little boys. Born with no inclination to share. And I found that so great. And I don't know if that was the writing or maybe it was her, but it was just Wonder Woman's way of saying, you men, you're not as strong as you think you are. It was a total female empowerment scene, and as a fan of Wonder Woman, I adored that. I adored what they did right there, saying that Bruce, you're not as bad as you think when it comes to this woman, and you by the end of the movie you find out why when she saves him. Um, and then also at the very end, like the ending scene when the Trinity is together, there's a awesome scene between Batman and Superman where Superman is able to push Doomsday out and do something to him because I couldn't really tell. And then, like I said before, Wonder Woman asks, why did you bring him back to the city? And then after Batman tells her why he did, Superman plops and goes, "Did you get the spear?" And Batman just looks at him and goes, "I've been a little busy." And that is so freaking from the comics and from the Justice League animated show of how Batman and Superman interact. That you saw the beginning of their little broship, their little bromance right there, and I was like, dude, I cannot wait till they start, giving us more Batman and Superman scenes, because there are some like really good in the animated series of Batman and Superman, and their ideologies, how they differ from things, and I might actually tell you a few of them that I thoroughly enjoy. But right now, man, I've been going on almost a half an hour. But that's really my spoiler review, guys. Be sure to rate and comment and um, tell me what you guys thought. What was your favorite scene? What didn't you like about the movie? What did you think they could have improved upon? Um, so yeah, and you guys all take care, man.